You can't just waltz in here and claim that dock. That's the very first thing she screamed, first words out of her mouth before I even knew who in the world she was. I'd barely set down my moving boxes when she came marching across my lawn like she owned the whole zip code, shouting something about community rules and access rights. No hello, no introduction, just pure undiluted entitlement. Like my property was some kind of community playground and she was the self-appointed sheriff. You ever meet someone like that your first day in a new place? Let me know, because that's exactly how my peaceful new life on Lake Harrison started. See, I'd bought this lakeside cabin thinking I was finally escaping 3 solid years of corporate burnout. 38 years old, head fried from running logistics for a shipping company, desperate for a little quiet on the weekends. The realtor showed me this place one breezy afternoon in late September. Weathered cedar, old stone fireplace, and best of all, my own pier stretching a good 50 feet out into that blue water. The paperwork was straightforward. Inspection came back clean, and 3 weeks later, I was signing papers with a trembling hand, paying with my own hard-earned retirement fund, thinking for once I'd made a smart move. Move-in day. I was up at 7, huffing boxes onto the porch, sucking in that clean, pine-laced air, so different from the stale office life I'd left behind. I'd barely carried my first load in when I looked out the kitchen window and saw 3 people wandering down my dock like they owned the place. One woman, late 50s, perfect blonde hair, stack of laminated documents, waving her arms at the water like she was staging some kind of performance. Right behind her, a squat man in a polo and khakis scribbling notes, and a third-person trailing face hidden by a ball cap. Now my first thought, maybe these were neighbors coming by to say hello. But their body language, too stiff, too rehearsed, told me this was a mission, not a social call. I pulled on my jacket, shuffled out there in my old moving jeans, and the second that woman spotted me, she barreled up the slope documents ready. "You must be the new owner," she barked with all the warmth of a frozen steak. "I'm Victoria Hale, president of the Lakeview Shores Homeowners Association, and we need to discuss your pier situation right away." The guy behind her, Clark Benson, some kind of self-styled enforcement officer, grinned like he was about to enjoy this. Victoria didn't waste a second. She started reciting a speech about community dock access and marina resources. According to her, my private pier was actually community property under the HOA covenants, and I'd need to surrender control so they could sell seasonal dock privileges for $200 a pop. "Your pier is the main access point," she said, like I was supposed to just nod along. Clark chimed in about daily fines, $50 and up if I didn't comply. Now maybe you're better at hiding your shock than I am, but I just let them talk eyes wide. Victoria started waving around blurry photocopies, each one more illegible than the last. "So what's your answer?" she finally asked with that little smirk. I looked from her face to Clark's, then down at the stack. "Can you show me the deed that proves this pier belongs to the HOA?" I asked, cool as I could manage. Instantly, Victoria started tap dancing, talking interpretations and community standards, but no actual legal document. Clark tried to puff up about inspections, but I just kept asking, "Show me the deed." Whole thing felt like a bad dream. Random people making demands on my dock on my first day. I pulled out my phone, started recording, and you should have seen their faces. Victoria got real hot about privacy, which was rich considering she was trespassing on my dock. I told them I'd review any legal documents. Then they scurried back down the pier, whispering and glancing over their shoulders. Standing there, heart pounding, I reached into my pocket and pulled out an old brass key the seller had left with the property. He joked at closing, "You'll figure out what it opens," and I'd laughed it off too, focused on forms to ask. But now turning it over, I noticed markings and anchor, an arrow carved by hand, old as the hills. That key felt suddenly important. Maybe there was more to this property than met the eye. Next morning, 5:30, bam, 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 on my front door. I drag myself up, peer through the peephole. There's Clark in a tie and shiny shoes, waving a stack of official papers. He launches into his violation speech. Unauthorized signage, failure to register watercraft access equipment, non-compliance with Marina integration protocols. Each paper printed with clip art borders and fonts from 1999, threatening daily fines that double weekly. What stung wasn't the laughable paperwork, it was how the neighbors started treating me. Lady across the street suddenly glued to her phone, old man who'd once waved, now avoiding my iPorch conversations, going silent as I walked by. Victoria, I realized, had been busy poisoning the well, telling her version of events before I even had a chance. Instead of moping, I started researching, pulling up satellite images, comparing them with the county property maps online. That's when I spotted something big, a misfiled lot line showing my property ran much further into the lake than I thought. The county's official boundaries didn't match Victoria's story at all. I walked the line myself, pushing through grass and cattails until I found it an old rusted boundary marker nearly swallowed by the earth with those same carved symbols as my key. Anchor key compass. Proof, real proof. On the way back, I ran into Harold Green's 70-ish tan hands tough from decades outdoors. He gave me a look, then murmured, "Heard you had some visitors." Turns out Harold's watched this HOA creep for years. Victoria slowly redrawing boundaries, claiming docks, pressuring folks to give up private rights in exchange for smaller dues. Nobody ever challenged it. Harold sighed, eyes sad. But Frank Morrison, the previous owner, he'd never caved, always waving paperwork and that same brass key saying his rights were rock solid. Harold warned me Victoria saw me as her shot to finally claim this pier. By Thursday, a community meeting notice lands in my mailbox, my name bolded under violations. Saturday night at the clubhouse, every folding chair full, Victoria holding court. She gave a long, dramatic speech, how I was a troublemaker, uncooperative, putting the whole community at risk. She rewrote our first meeting as her friendly welcome and Clark's dawn citation as routine procedure. Residents were being nudged, coached to back her up, property values, children's safety, all the usual. But when my turn came, I stayed calm, looked around and said, "Victoria, I asked you for a deed. I'm still waiting." But let me tell you what I've found. I described the boundary marker, the map discrepancy, and right there someone from the back called out, "Where's their deed?" Victoria dodged the energy, shifted. People were curious now. This wasn't just my fight anymore. That night I double-checked my documents and the GPS photos. Wind rattled the cabin windows, nerves kept me awake. Sometime after 11 I heard footsteps, then the slip of paper under my door. Sell or regret it. Last warning. 5 words. No signature. That's when I knew things had gotten real. Next morning I found both my truck tires slashed. Sheriff came out, shrugged it off as property dispute. His tone said it all. Victoria's story had made the rounds. That night I saw flashlights at the dock, 2 figures measuring, taking photos. HOA inspection by moonlight. Then a letter from a law office full of legalese threatening court if I didn't surrender the pier. The pressure was on, but I remembered what my dad always said, documentation beats confrontation. So I called a lawyer friend, sent every scrap of paperwork, survey, and title I had. By Friday, my lawyer called with a bombshell. The original 1970s survey proved I had an exclusive easement. No one, not even the HOA, could touch my pier or waterfront. Even better, the HOA had been paying me for Marina insurance since closing. That night as the sun set, I walked to the end of my dock key in my pocket, ready for whatever came next. On Saturday, I flipped the script, strung lights along the pier, set up a table and grill, and invited every neighbor except Victoria and Clark for an open dock party. Families trickled in. Megan Price, a single mom with 2 kids, was first. "We've never actually been out on a dock like this," she said, kids wide-eyed at the water. Others joined, swapping stories about the HOA's fines enforcement and the mysterious Marina Fund. Turns out Victoria had been collecting money over $50,000 for repairs, but the docks had rotted for years. Megan stood on the pier and said loud enough for the whole lake, Don't turn our marina into an ATM. That got applause, laughter, the whole mood shifted. For the first time, the community saw through the smoke. Of course, Clark lurked in the shadows, taking photos, building his case for violations. As the party ended, Harold whispered, "Frank left more than just docks. Check the land deeds again." Monday, the final inspection. Victoria Clark and the board with their boxes of evidence. Victoria's big argument. My pier endangered the community, required immediate seizure for safety. But all their documents were photocopies, no official stamps. I handed out notarized deeds, real ones, showing my exclusive rights dating back to the lake's original development. I explained in plain English how those easements overrode any HOA bylaw, settled law, county sealed, unrevoked. Most dramatic moment, Victoria's lawyer claimed their authority was based on surface rights, not the land beneath. I produced the Marina title transfer, showed I owned the submerged land too. The crowd gasped. Turns out Frank had owned the entire marina, every slip and dock for decades, sold it all to me, not just the cabin. The HOA had never had jurisdiction, and the insurance contract proved it. HOA was a tenant, not an owner, and had been paying me since the day I moved in. That was it. The crowd turned. Residents started asking, "Where's the repair money gone?" Harold's wife, usually silent, spoke up. "You fined my father for painting his mailbox blue. You were never legitimate." As the crowd pressed, one board member threw his badge down and walked out. Someone started live streaming. Victoria for once fell silent. Within a week, Victoria and Clark had both resigned. An emergency audit revealed they'd embezzled nearly $90,000 in HOA funds, vacations, home improvements, consulting fees. The county prosecutor got involved, charges were filed, and the community finally saw what was really going on. Harold was elected interim president, and under his leadership, everything changed. The new marina system ran on volunteer maintenance, no more fees, no more secret rules. I put up a new sign, community access by owner permission. That old private pier warning was gone. 6 months later, families waved when they saw me. Megan coordinated cleanups. Harold kept us honest. And me, I'd stand on my dock at sunset, the brass key warm in my hand, thinking maybe, just maybe, some things are meant to be cared for, not controlled. If you're still listening, tell me, have you ever had to stand your ground for something bigger than yourself? Drop your story in the comments. And hey, if this hit home, you can always tap that thanks button, share your own war stories, or just stick around. Because in this world, sometimes you've got to fight for your little corner. Somebody might need it more than you think.